All right, welcome back to class 2. Here we go. So now that we kind of familiarized ourselves with the basic layout of Photoshop, let's go ahead and I really like to just dive in. I really want you to treat this class as a class that you can go at your own pace, so feel free to pause at any time and go back and listen again to something. I like to kind of go a little bit quicker, knowing that you can pause and continue to watch the class whenever you're ready. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and open a file. And I think if we do like a sample of kind of what I would normally do in Photoshop, I can kind of just go over kind of some basic tools as we do a project. So we're actually going to complete a social media graphic by the end of this video. And this is only your second lesson in the Photoshop class, but I want to kind of show you kind of some of the steps I go through so I can teach you some of the tools while we're going at this. And if you seemed overwhelmed, that's okay. By the end of the class, this will be no problem what we're getting ready to do. But I just want to show you the power of Photoshop and what we're going to be able to accomplish at the end of the class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to actually, there's two different file formats. And this looks a lot different. They just updated, I have Photoshop CC, which stands for Creative Cloud. So every year they're constantly updating Photoshop for me. I pay a monthly subscription for it. You can have an older version of Photoshop where you don't have to pay monthly, which is great if you have that. But I pay monthly just to get some of the updates. They just updated this. So this actually looks different than it did a month ago. So if your screen looks a little different, a lot of the options are exactly the same. It's just a little bit of a different layout in terms of how it looks. But all the settings are all the same. All the options are all the same. So let's go ahead and open up a simple document. I'm trying to think of if I want to do a digital or a print document. These are the two big, this is the biggest decision you have to make when you're working in Photoshop. Is this going to be a printed item, a business card, a flyer, is it a big banner, or is it going to be a digital graphic? A graphic I'm going to put on the web, it's going to be shown on a computer screen, a mobile screen, anything that's digital. So you need to know that before you open up the document which way it's going to be. So I'm going to do a social media graphic for Facebook. That is digital. So there's a few things we need to set up before we open up our digital document. The first thing is to the right. Inches is going to be great for print. I'm going to print an 8.5 by 11 inch document, or if you're in Europe and other parts of the world, you're going to use a different system, not inches, but centimeters or millimeters. So I don't need any of that. I'm going to actually be doing this digitally. So everything in digital is in the pixel format and the pixel size. So make sure anytime you're doing anything for the web, it's going to be in pixels. So I'm going to do kind of your standard Facebook ad graphic. That's going to be 1600 in width. And these are things you'll just kind of learn and memorize as you do this more often. And you can actually go online and easily find sizes, standard sizes for digital formats. So 1600 by 600 in height. So this is kind of just a sample. Actually, it's 1200. I'm sorry, 1200 by 600 pixels. Orientation, I want to make sure this is horizontal. If I wanted it vertical, you just go like that and notice how the items switched, width and height switched. So you can kind of toggle that easily. Okay, and so there's a few different, this is definitely different for me. I'm still learning this layout. It was a totally different format 1 month ago. Resolution, anything for the web, it's great to have at 72. This seems like a random number, but anything digital on a screen that's not a retina screen, which is what Apple's high-end Apple computers use, anything that's not a high-end retina screen, it's going to display everything in a 72 pixels per inch resolution. Anything in the print environment, you're going to want to have that at 300. And these are just two things you just have to memorize. 72 for digital and 30 for print. And so we're doing a digital, so we're going to make sure that's in 72. And sometimes you'll design something and they'll request it, maybe it's going to be displayed on a retina screen, which is a super high resolution screen, or a 4K screen, and they may request it to be 300 resolution. So it just depends on what you're working with, but I usually by default do 72, something you're just going to have to memorize. Color mode, RGB. There's only two things you really need to worry about, is RGB and CMYK. RGB stands for red, green, blue. That's your standard digital color format. This is something, again, you're going to have to memorize, and once you set up a few of these, it'll be no problem. So we have the pixel environment for digital, we have a 72 resolution, and we have it set to RGB. If we were doing print, we would do CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So you'll learn all that as we go throughout the class. So don't feel overwhelmed, just one thing at a time. I always just do a standard white background. Advanced options, you will probably not need to do this at this level. That's more for advanced users. That's it. Go ahead and create your new document, and we have our document created. So this is kind of your artboard workspace. Anything outside of this space, whenever you export it to a JPEG or a PDF, it will not be included. So everything, this is kind of the visible space that we have to work with, and it's 1200 pixels in width and 600 pixels in height. So this is kind of our basic document setup, and the next class we're going to start kind of working with some tools to create a graphic.